Buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love and support you guys extend my way. Del Cora, gracias. Also, do please like, share, and subscribe, and help support the message for it to reach different angles. But anyways, to get into the conversation on hand, today I want to touch or circle around a Billy that he's not really known, right? Or he's not talked or was talked a lot of, right? As well as expand on things I mentioned to you in different angles, right? For one, the loyalty. We take sureños out of the picture or the conversation. You guys ever notice how Billys or MM members, they're always working together, and at the end, they start going against each other's throat? It's just not possible for one way or another, right? But this specific topic happened with a Billy that I've always said, I consider him to be, I'm not gonna say famous, but an okay dude, right? When it comes to an MM member, or at least when I was with him, right? But anyways, Bomber from Redlands, he uh he was an ADX when I hit the feds, right? So I never had you could say the well of working with or crossing words to whatever extent, right? But I was with the homie boxer from Northside, Redlands, I believe. He was from Redlands, right? We'll just leave it at that. And he was under Bomber, right? And they were doing big things. I'm not gonna minimize the Vato, right? The Pili, to say that he didn't really have a lot of going on for himself, because well, he should have, right? But I understand that once he got made, he got slammed in the feds, right? So he wasn't ready for it. I believe so, right? Nevertheless, with the homie boxer, there was a lot of movement. I was cool with the homie, right? But I always painted my line with them, cause they were messing with the aretes, right? The arellanos, real tough, and I never liked them for many reasons, right? But nevertheless, my respects. At the end of the day, we are who we are, and that extension of getting work, whatever, it just don't really matter, right? Again, it's out of the States or California, so it has no meaning, right? Or at least that's how they play it out to be. Nevertheless, the homie was taking, I'll just say toys, down for exchange of dulce, right? And different types of dulce. You guys get it. But at one point, he was real close with Toro from Cucamonga Kings, right? And I said it many times. When I was in the shoe with Toro, he was a cool pili. I mean, firmes. At the moment, until day, right? I don't think I can say I met another pili as cool as him when it came to towards the camaradas, right? And of course, things changed up as they always do, right? When money comes, you could say, I'm not gonna say power hungry, but this ego that eventually will wear you down, right? Start going against how you started off being, right? And of course, the politicking and all that goes around that you have to blend in. It's normal, right? Nevertheless, Boxer was doing his thing. Like I said, Toro took Bomber under his wing. For those that don't know, right? Redlands is Toro's territory, point blank. It don't matter. Givey's there. Um, at the moment, Bomber was there. You know, everything that moved in Redlands was Toro's. So whatever the extension Toro and Bomber were doing at the moment, Bomber decided to put a stop to it, right? With Arellanos, because there was a better offers down south, right in Zacatecas. I don't know if it still is, but back in the days, Toro's stronghold was where his family was from, right in Zacatecas with the Cabreras, right? And they started working, on prices. Here in Mexico, what's worth more than candy, right? Are toys for the movement here in Mexico, or the type of wiggles that happen here in Mexico, right? So the exchange was being made, right? Through who to what, that don't really matter, right? But nevertheless, Boxer had two homeboys, right? And his homeboys had their families. Limpy and Mousing, they were from his neighborhood again. I believe it's north side, Redlands, but don't quote me, please. It became a time where, as a camarada, we want to get more involved, right? Because the more we do, we believe we're getting in better with the Billy, right? At least it's our belief. At the same time, they sit back and in reality they laugh, right? They see a camarada, bending backwards to please them. It's amusement to them because their way ain't gonna change point blank, right? But anyways, that's not what the topic is. The homies, right? Limpy and Mousy, they had a crew, excuse me, going where they started setting up routes, right? Avenues, took it down to Zacatecas or to wherever they were meeting, right? With them claveras and everything was going famous, right? We seen it because, Boxer was getting love where we were at. He was getting a little bit of a taste of what was happening, right? To say it like that. When everything changed was Mexico's a tricky territory. What do I mean by that? You know, down here they don't play by rules. If it's like a constant drop of having people cross, take a route, pick up, drop, come back. A lot of different pointers, halcones, whatever you want to call them, they're everywhere. Remember, they minimize the aretes, right? The arellanos. So thing has a funny way to reach ears in Mexico. And things started going bad, right? Without getting into details on that, but people started coming up missing, right? Not limpy and mousy, but like I said, they picked up a crew, right? And that's when Boxer started getting upset. Because he did what we all think is correct to do, right? Which is bring our homies into the fold. Have them get mixed to earn stripes. To look good in a Billy's mind, head, eyesight, whatever you want to call it, right? And things started going bad. And it wasn't going back really with the aretes. As boxers playing it, it was the Cabreras playing games, right? In the sense of either their highlight was coming up short once it reached this side, or they agreed on a price on toys, and once they were ready down in Mexico, they reorganized that contract, right? So money started being missing. Besides the point, people started getting clipped. That's how they do things here in Mexico. The weenie way, behind the scenes, hiding. And oops, I didn't do it. Sounds familiar. Anyways, again, the one with the true feria, bringing the toys to the table, was Toro. And at the time, he put up with a lot, right? A lot of errors. I'll just leave it at that. And it came to the point where he was in the feds too, right? But they can't touch each other. So, a smart Pili, to be sincere, is one that don't play his cards. What I mean by this is they're doing things, but they don't expose their soldados unless they need to, right? but Bomber felt the need to, what we do, try to impress Toro, right? Again, the comparison of Toro's power in the IE is just not matched, right? Or you guys tell me one in the IE that had his reach, his movement. Please think and said and analyze that. The movement Toro has in the IE. Or name me a city he's not in, right? And then in Mexico, I'm talking about this specifically pipeline because it got cracked and shot down, right? It's not there no more. But Toro at the moment started having problems, as you guys know, with his actions. I'll just say it like that, right? Which at one point he was with Roman D from Ontario. He was with well, he was with the E, right? To keep control of the E. Then the incident with Güero Verde, his wife, the welcoming or opening of Ayala's and Maravilla into the Anglian Empire, and him betraying his carnals from the A, right? Keep in mind, Toro smart though. In the organizations, there's not supposed to be politicking, favoritism. So in the clique as a whole, Toro did nothing wrong. He might sting the Pili in the wrong way from the IE, right? But in reality, again, he's not matched in IE. It's just facts, right? Anyways, Daryl ended up getting clipped. A lot of different things started happening. Oh, right, from by Imperial, bus, right, that were happening in the IE. A lot of losses. So he started pressing on Bomber, right? He didn't want no more losses. You know, it could only go so far. It don't matter if they're carnales, right? Hermanos. And, as boxers told it, whatever they lost, and I'm talking about Bomber, Boxer, and their homies, it was none of his business. They were going to pay it point blank. He wasn't going to take the loss no more just for extending his hand. He went on a trip when all this started happening. He did a 180, right, in personality, at least in my opinion, right? And, it happened a couple more times. And he wanted his feria. Bomber didn't want to politic against Toro. Let's just keep it a buck, right? So, what does Bomber do? What Pilis do? They wash their hand with the closest camarada to them, right? And he asked Boxer to pay for everything. If he couldn't pay, to go ahead. When this came up, it was something I had not heard, right? Which was he got requested to tell his family to pawn houses, pawn cars, whatever he needed the money, point blank. And they gave him time limit. His own homeboy, for he was doing things with who he got indicted for. Well, he got indicted for Toro, but again, the feds don't know everything. He is giving him 20 days to come up with a feria. When you're doing things to impress, not to win feria or whatever for yourself, it's just impossible, right? I would have done what Boxer did. How the hell am I going to tell my heifer to sell her house, her car, for something I got involved in, right? It's just not manly. Nevertheless, the time came and that Willa came out, right? The one that enforced him was G.I. Joe Soldados, because I guess Bomber and G.I. Joe, they went back to, I couldn't really tell you, right? Which, as a matter of fact, is the next person I'm going to touch, right? On G.I. Joe. But anyways, Boxer got taken out. And at the end of the day, it was for what? The worst part about it, right? I don't know if many know, but Bomber, he would eventually get out. And when he got out, he sat. See, he didn't like he had to move on his own homeboy, but he had to because he has to blend in with what's going on, right? Remember Tecato's mentality. you're a tecato or not, you still has to set your mind to think as so, to act as so. So he got out before he sat. All them bottles working on the boxer couldn't come around no more. Imagine you on the street, doing everything right for your neighborhood, supporting one of your older homies. For a stranger, I say so, right? Getting out and them telling you we ain't from the same neighborhood, but you can't come around your neighborhood no more, or you're gonna get clipped by your own homeboys. To what extent, how many, I couldn't tell you, right? But that's how crazy politics are now. That's how far you opened up the door to these individuals for them to dictate just 'cause they say so that anything you done for your neighborhood solid don't mean nothing if they don't want you around no more. So where's the love, right? And I'm not speaking about them. I'm speaking for that neighborhood you bleed and sweat. You share good moments, bad moments that you will die for. When it comes a time now that they call it fear, straight up, Billy say barrios are scared of them. That's why they could tell on the street, a vato, even though he grew up with another vato since kindergarten, whatever. Hey, I don't like your homeboy. Whack him and don't allow him to come back. Homeboy's so scared he has to push through it. Imagine that. Nevertheless, I heard, right, once he was out, he made a lot of promises. He was one of the hardest pushers for sniper from Monteiro to Bless. As I will touch on him soon. But then he sat. He hits the streets and, he collected, grabbed Feria. And as far as I know right now, nobody knows where he's at. Now answer me this. Where does that leave the vatos underneath him? All you're gonna do is get a call. Hey, where's your deal? Let's say Toro's calling you. Where's your deal at? Oh, I don't know. What you mean you don't know? You're supposed to be taking care of him. He went MIA. Is that right? He owed me, let's just say, 50,000 bucks. You in your neighborhood got 10 days to come up with the feria. You don't, your neighborhood's gonna get green lighted. And it's for one of their actions. Remember, camaradas will pay the price for a Billy's actions that you're working for, but a camarada could never, ever even state something when it comes to MS program. But they make all the hard decisions. The point of this is you see how love and hate goes hand in hand with carnales. Billy's, when people that think Tecato wise like this and are so bipolars, right, with each other, jealous. My question before I end this is it really fear? Please do answer me in the comments. Why do you guys think it is a soul now, right? To the extent that it is. But anyways, I just thought I'd open up a glimpse. At the end of the day, don't be misled. There is no loyalty in prison. Nowhere. It's full of nothing but lies and betrayals and misled beliefs. At all times, remember, yeah, we know what we signed up for. Take it from an individual. I was willing to fool myself through anything, right? But are you willing to sacrifice your family's life? Remember, they're gonna do the time with you. At least in my case, imagine my jefita when she found out all her dummies back in the hole. Oh, your dummy ain't never getting out the hole. Oh, he got stabbed. He's over here. For what? Stay true to yourself and know to your loved ones.